I thought I told useless people like you to eat in the restroom. What are you doing here? Kevin, the HR manager, spat these words at Melanie, the new recruit. Tears welled up in Melanie's eyes, and she quickly looked down. I watched the scene unfold from the corner of the hallway near the restroom. My name is Kyle Thompson, 45. I'm the president of this company. I just returned to the Japan headquarters after 5 years overseas, and no one has recognized me yet. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I called out to Kevin. Oh, and who might you be? Another new recruit? No, I'm Kyle Thompson, the president. Kevin's face turned pale. What? President, Mr. Thompson? No way. Yes. I just returned after 5 years. Now, what was that comment you just made? Kevin hastily began to explain. Well, it's just part of the training for new employees. Training? Making someone eat in the restroom is what you call training? I couldn't contain my anger and raised my voice. Melanie, is that your name? Come over here, please. Melanie approached timidly, and I spoke to her in a gentle tone. Melanie, can you tell me how you ended up joining us? Yes. I studied computer science in college and applied through your innovation recruitment program. It was a tough exam, but I somehow passed. I see. And how have you been treated since joining? After hesitating, Melanie answered in a small voice. Actually, it's been 2 months since I joined, but I haven't been given any programming work yet. Every day, I'm assigned menial tasks around the office. And today, I was told to eat lunch in the restroom. I felt my anger boiling over. Turning to Kevin, I questioned him in a severe tone. Kevin, explain yourself. Why is an employee recruited through the innovation program being treated like this? Kevin began to rattle off excuses. Well, you see, there's a reason. New hires lack social skills, so we need to start with strict, foundational training. Foundational training? Disrespecting a person's dignity isn't training. Melanie, gather your things immediately and come to my office. You'll have lunch there. A look of shock appeared on Melanie's face. Really? Are you sure? Of course. And starting this afternoon, you'll be transferred to a department where you can fully utilize your abilities. But, Mr. Thompson, isn't this a bit abrupt? Kevin, gather all employees in the conference room immediately. There's an important announcement. Kevin nodded slightly, looking pale. Melanie, let's go. This company's purpose is to recognize and foster talent, and that's exactly how it should be. Tears glistened in Melanie's eyes. But this time, they were tears of hope. I will bring this company back to being a place where every employee is respected and can fully unleash their talents. That is my mission now that I've returned after 5 years. I am the founder and president of Tech Innovation Inc. 15 years ago, while working as an engineer at a major IT company, I grew uncomfortable with the old mindset of judging people solely by their education or background. Seeing young people with talent denied opportunities just because they hadn't followed the official route only strengthened my desire to create a company where everyone could maximize their potential. So, with like-minded colleagues, I founded Tech Innovation. We made it a policy to disregard educational backgrounds, relying solely on merit, and have since welcomed diverse individuals, including those who taught themselves programming and those transitioning from other industries. As a result, we cultivated a culture of creativity, gaining attention within the industry. 5 years ago, I went to the US to expand our operations, immersing myself in the effort to build new markets. In my absence, I had entrusted the Japan headquarters to Travis, our vice president. I never imagined things would turn out like this. In the US, I experienced Silicon Valley's forward-thinking culture and management values that emphasize diversity, reaffirming the importance of our own company's principles. I also became acutely aware of how far behind Japanese corporate culture lags. Upon my return, I headed directly from the airport to the headquarters, quietly entering the company to avoid drawing attention. What I saw there was a company culture that had drifted drastically from my original vision. Our founding principles had faded, replaced by outdated practices like elitism and seniority-based hierarchy. And Kevin, the HR manager, was the worst offender. As my anger swelled, so did a strong sense of duty. I need to change this company and perhaps even the Japanese corporate culture itself. I must rebuild a place where talented young people can soar freely. With that resolve, I began preparing for a major overhaul of the company. Armed with the international perspective and experience I'd gained over the past 5 years, I'm ready to transform tech innovation into a truly innovative company. That's my responsibility as its founder. The emergency meeting I called for all employees had begun. The air in the conference room was tense. Standing on the stage, I spoke quietly but firmly. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply disappointed to see how far our company's principles have been distorted during my 5-year absence. The crowd murmured in surprise. I could see Kevin's face grow even paler. Today, I witnessed our new employee, Melanie, being ordered to eat lunch in the restroom. This is an affront to human dignity. Gasps filled the room. Voices of shock rippled through the employees. Furthermore, I discovered that many young employees who joined through our innovation recruitment program are being prevented from using their talents. This goes against our company's principles and is absolutely unacceptable. I paused, then directed my gaze at Kevin. Kevin, come up to the stage. With trembling legs, Kevin climbed onto the stage. Kevin, how do you intend to explain this situation? Well, it's all part of training for the new employees, to teach them basic workplace skills. Training? Basic skills? Bullying people isn't training. Crushing the potential of talented young people isn't basic skills. My voice echoed through the conference room. Kevin was left speechless, standing frozen in place. Kevin, you are immediately relieved of your duties as HR manager. And for the next month, you will perform the same tasks as the new employees. During that time, you will relearn what this company's principles truly stand for. Kevin's face turned ashen. The crowd was visibly shocked. And to all employees, starting today, this company will be reborn. We will no longer judge people by their educational background or age, but by pure ability and passion. This company will be a place where everyone can freely unleash their creativity. That is the true vision of tech innovation. A small round of applause began and gradually grew louder. The young employee's eyes began to shine. I will announce specific reforms soon. In the meantime, any employees who have experienced unfair treatment should come directly to me. I will listen to every concern and take appropriate action. The meeting ended, and Kevin left the room with slumped shoulders. Anger and shame were visible in his retreating figure. But this is just the beginning. Resistance from the old guard is bound to intensify from here. Internally, I steeled myself for the difficult battles that lay ahead. A week had passed since the emergency meeting. I had been fully immersed in designing a new HR system. It is about developing a system to fairly assess employees' abilities and place them in roles that best match their skills. That afternoon, Travis, the vice president, came into my office. "Mr. Thompson, may I have a moment?" "Ah, Travis, what's on your mind?" Travis looked tense, clearly struggling with something he needed to say. "Actually, some board members have raised concerns about Kevin's situation." "Oh? And what concerns would those be?" "Well, they feel that Kevin's sudden demotion was excessive. Given his years of service, they believe there might have been a more measured approach." I frowned. Years of service? Bullying employees and crushing the potential of young talent counts as years of service? Yes, I agree it's a problem. But Kevin may have had his own perspective on Perspective? What kind of excuse could possibly justify violating a person's dignity? Travis fell silent. Travis, you were the vice president, responsible for this company while I was away. Why did you allow this situation to fester? I'm sorry. I should have seen it. But the numbers were good, and... Numbers? Are you saying it's acceptable to abandon our principles just to meet short-term targets? Travis blushed and looked down. Understood. Call in all the board members. Right now. Travis quickly left the room. I let out a deep sigh and looked out the window. The future of this company depends on what I do now. I have to resolve this issue at its core. An hour later, the emergency board meeting was convened. As I entered the conference room, tension filled the air. The seasoned directors scrutinized me with calculating eyes. So, I hear there are opinions on Kevin's disciplinary action? One of the older board members, Carl, spoke up. Mr. Thompson, I do think Kevin's demotion was harsh. He has been a valuable contributor to our HR operations for many years. A valuable contributor? By bullying employees and suppressing talent? Another board member, Samuel, interjected. Mr. Thompson, abrupt changes like this could destabilize the company. Many of our clients and partners value the long-standing relationships they've had with us. Losing experienced employees like Kevin might impact those connections. I took a deep breath and began to speak, calmly yet firmly. Ladies and gentlemen, why does this company exist? Is it for short-term gains? Or to change the world through innovative ideas? The room fell silent. Kevin's actions fundamentally oppose our company's core values. If we allow people like him to remain unchecked, genuine talent will never come here. And as for the rest of you, why have you tolerated this situation for the past 5 years? Does profitability justify anything? The directors averted their eyes. However, one of the younger board members, Tony, spoke up. Mr. Thompson is right. I've had doubts about this situation for a long time myself. But nobody had the courage to speak up. Thank you, Tony. I'm glad there are people here who share my views. But Carl spoke again. Mr. Thompson, Kevin's methods certainly have their issues. However, he also has a wealth of experience. Isn't there a way we could use that experience, perhaps by re-educating him instead of cutting him off completely? Carl, experience does matter. But when that experience is misapplied, isn't it more of a liability? Even so, Mr. Thompson, wouldn't be disregarding a long-serving employee like Kevin harm overall morale? On the contrary, Samuel. The morale suffers far more when talented young employees are oppressed and their potential crushed. A heavy silence settled over the conference room. But the older faction of the board members showed clear signs of anger on their faces. In contrast, the younger director's eyes sparkled with hope. Ladies and gentlemen, from this day forward, we will root out the old ways. Anyone who cannot accept this will need to leave the leadership. This is the final notice. Wait. Mr. Thompson, isn't that authoritarian? Authoritarian? No, this is reform. A vital reform grounded in our company's core values. I support Mr. Thompson's stance. If we don't act, we'll end up losing our best talent. Thank you, Tony. Does anyone else have a comment? The room fell silent. The board members exchanged glances, as if making a collective decision. Very well. Let's put it to a vote. Those in favor of maintaining Kevin's disciplinary action and moving forward with these reforms, please raise your hand. Slowly, but surely, hands went up. In the end, a majority of the board signaled their agreement. It's settled. Starting tomorrow, we will begin drafting a new plan for reform. A structure that maximizes every employee's potential and drives true innovation. As the meeting concluded, the board members filed out. Travis, the last to leave, approached me. "Mr. Thompson, I also want to apologize. From here on, I'll fully support these reforms." "Good. I'll need your strength, Travis." After Travis left, I gazed out the window. The sunset sky seemed to herald a new era. I know the waves this decision will stir up. But there's no turning back. The future of this company, and of the talented young people within it, depends on this. Strengthening my resolve, I prepared for the battles to come. 2 weeks passed since the ultimatum in the boardroom. The reforms were progressing steadily, but resistance from the old faction had only grown fiercer. Then, a shocking report landed on my desk. "Mr. Thompson, we have a serious issue. We've received information that Kevin is attempting to take company secrets out of the building." "What? Tell me everything." "Yes, it seems Kevin is trying to leak personal data of employees hired through the innovation program, along with details of our upcoming projects, to an outside source." I felt my anger flare. "Do we have proof?" "Yes. Our IT department detected suspicious data access and traced it to Kevin's account, where we found large-scale data downloads." "Damn, bring him to my office now." 30 minutes later, Kevin was brought into my office. His face was pale, and he was visibly shaken. "Kevin, I understand you're attempting to leak our company's confidential information externally." "What are you talking about?" "I would never. We have the evidence. Suspicious data access has been detected from your account." "Explain yourself." For a moment, Kevin was at a loss for words, but he quickly put on a defiant expression. "So what?" "Mr. Thompson, I can't just stand by and watch while your reckless reforms ruin this company." "What did you say?" "You're tearing down everything we've spent years building. I can't allow that. I'll use this information to put a stop to your recklessness." I struggled to keep my anger in check, determined to respond calmly. "Kevin, you clearly don't understand. What we built was not about stifling talent. It was about fostering innovation. Don't make me laugh. You think this company can run on lofty ideals?" "No, Kevin, you're the one who's laughable." "Do you realize how many talents have been wasted because of your mentality?" "Shh. Kevin, you have two choices here. 1. You return all the information immediately and resign. 2. I report this to the authorities, and legal action will follow. Which will it be?" Kevin's face turned ghostly white. With trembling hands, he pulled out a USB drive and placed it on the desk. "This is everything. I'll never." "Understood. Submit your resignation immediately, and don't ever set foot in this company again." Kevin slumped as he left the room, his back heavy with the weight of defeat and shame. I let out a deep sigh. One obstacle was now removed, but the battle was far from over. In fact, the true struggle was just beginning. Determined to transform this company into a truly innovative organization, I steeled myself for what lay ahead. A week after Kevin's resignation, I announced an innovation contest open to all employees. The contest was designed as a platform where anyone, regardless of position or background, could freely propose ideas. "Ladies and gentlemen, for the next month, we'll be holding the Building the Future Innovation Contest. Exceptional ideas will immediately become projects, and the proposers will be appointed as project leaders." The room buzzed with excitement. The eyes of the younger employees lit up with anticipation. Educational background, career history, and seniority will have no bearing on this. We'll judge purely based on innovation and feasibility. Then, I made a surprise announcement. And we've invited renowned venture capitalists and entrepreneurs from outside to serve as judges, ensuring a truly merit-based evaluation. The older directors of the traditionalist faction could not hide their unease at this news. 2 weeks into the contest, we had an overwhelming number of entries. Applications poured in, particularly from younger employees who had previously felt stifled. One day, Melanie visited my office. "Mr. Thompson, do you have a moment?" "Of course, Melanie. What's on your mind?" "Well, I'd like to discuss a project I submitted for the contest." "All right, let's hear it." Melanie began to explain, looking a bit nervous. Her proposal was to develop a platform using AI technology to support employment for people with disabilities. I was taken aback by the originality of her idea. "This is an incredible idea. Why were you hesitant to bring it forward?" "Well, Kevin once told me, don't even think of such an ambitious project. Ridiculous. This is exactly the kind of innovation we need. Submit it with confidence." Tears glistened in Melanie's eyes. "And Melanie, if this project is approved, I'd like you to lead it." "Me? But I'm still." "You'll be fine. With your passion and skills, you'll make it happen. I'll give you my full support." With tears of gratitude, Melanie bowed deeply. On the final day of the contest, we held a presentation with the external judges present. Melanie's project won the grand prize. Several other groundbreaking ideas from young employees also received high praise. As today's results show, there was incredible talent lying dormant within our company. From this day forward, we'll immediately initiate these projects. The room was filled with excitement and hope. The traditionalist directors were visibly taken aback by the young employees' achievements. For the first time, I felt a tangible sense of progress toward a bright future. A month had passed since the success of the innovation contest. Projects like Melanie's AI-based employment support platform and others spearheaded by young employees were already underway, bringing new energy into the company. However, resistance from the traditionalist faction continued. One day, Travis visited my office. "Mr. Thompson, we've received a complaint from a major client, Sonic Technology." "What's the nature of the complaint?" "They say the approach from the new project teams is very different from before. They feel that the younger employees are too prominent and that it lacks the reliability they've come to expect." I frowned. This was something we anticipated. "Got it. I'll reach out directly to Mr. Walsh, the president of Sonic Technology." "But Mr. Thompson, Mr. Walsh is known for being an old-school manager. Do you think he'll be open to understanding our new, youth-driven approach?" "That's exactly why I need to explain it directly. Innovation can't happen if we're afraid of change." "True. However, Sonic Technology makes up 20% of our revenue. Losing them would have a huge impact on the company." "I understand. That's why it's crucial they see the need for change as well." The next day, I visited Sonic Technology. As I waited in the meeting room, Mr. Walsh walked in. "Hey there, Mr. Thompson. Long time no see." "Good to see you again, Mr. Walsh. Thank you for making time to meet." "Mr. Thompson, I must admit, I'm baffled by the recent changes in your company. Are you sure it's wise to let young folks take the lead?" "Mr. Walsh, it's actually the old ways that have been holding us back. Suppressing young talent stifles innovation before it even begins." "But isn't it risky to entrust important projects to inexperienced youth?" "In our industry, experience and connections are everything. Experience is valuable, no doubt. But relying solely on it limits the creation of new value. The fresh perspectives of the younger generation, paired with their understanding of the latest technologies, are exactly what's needed for the future." I see your point. But how exactly do you intend to change things? For example, let me share about an innovative solution proposed by our new team. I began explaining the predictive analytics system our team had developed, using AI and big data. This system had the potential to significantly improve Sonic Technology's production efficiency. With this system, We can predict production line issues in advance and optimize maintenance schedules. By linking it with market trends, we can also dramatically improve demand forecasting. Mr. Walsh's eyes began to light up with interest. Interesting. I'll admit, this sounds compelling. But I'm still a bit uneasy. Implementing a new, untested system right away in our main facility. Your concern is completely understandable. How about this? We could start with a small test project and assess the results before fully implementing it. If it doesn't deliver, I'll take full responsibility. Oh, you're that confident? Yes. I have complete trust in our young talent. After some deep thought, Mr. Walsh nodded slowly. All right. Under those conditions, I'll give your new team a chance. However, I want regular updates on the project. And remember, if there's any issue, we may halt it immediately. Thank you. I'm confident you'll see great results. Back at the office, I immediately gathered the new team. Everyone, the project with Sonic Technology is officially a go. This is your chance to prove yourselves. Give it everything you've got. The team leader, Melanie, stepped forward. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We'll make this a success. The young team's eyes shone with determination. But keep this in mind, this project isn't just about delivering a system. Building trust with Sonic Technology's employees is equally important. Listen carefully to their concerns and work together to find solutions. Understood. We'll focus on both the technical and relational aspects. Good, I'm counting on you. Let's get started. 1 week after the project began, Melanie gave her first report. Mr. Thompson, I visited Sonic Technology's site. The resistance from the staff was stronger than expected. What kind of reaction did you get? Many were saying things like, "What do these young kids know, and our current methods work just fine." The strongest pushback came from mid-level employees. I see. They probably feel as if their experience and knowledge are being dismissed. Yes. What should we do? Melanie, listen closely to their concerns and fears. Show them exactly how the new system can make their work easier and more efficient. Don't turn them into adversaries, instead, work to bring them on our side. Understood. I'll rethink our approach. The project continued to face various challenges. System glitches, data alignment issues, and security concerns surfaced one after another. However, the young team addressed each problem earnestly, solving them one by one. Then, 2 months after the project's start, the test project results came in. Mr. Thompson, we have the results. How did it turn out? The results exceeded expectations. Production efficiency increased by 15%, and the defect rate dropped by 5%. Plus, the reduction in downtime from preventive maintenance was significant. That's fantastic. How did Sonic Technology react? Yes. I received a call from Mr. Walsh himself. He said he was awakened to new possibilities. Well done, Melanie. This is the result of the entire team's hard work. Thank you. But there are still some challenges. What kind of challenges? Yes. There's room for improvement in system operations. Also, we're still hearing some resistance from certain employees at Sonic Technology. I see. Instead of aiming for perfection, we should keep focusing on continuous improvement. Tackling these challenges one by one will help us build even more trust. Understood. We'll keep pushing forward. This success quickly became big news in the industry. The news of a young, innovation-driven approach succeeding spread rapidly, boosting our company's reputation. A few days later, I got a direct call from Mr. Walsh. Mr. Thompson, you were right. I underestimated the power of the younger generation. Thank you. I appreciate you giving them a chance and believing in their potential. No, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You made me realize that our company also needs to change. In fact, we're planning to launch a young talent development program like yours. Could you give us some advice? Of course. I'd be glad to help. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, we've also decided to fully implement the AI system. We're counting on you. Thank you very much. We'll make sure to meet your expectations. After hanging up, I felt a profound sense of relief and joy. This success went beyond a single project. It might be a significant step toward transforming Japanese corporate culture. That evening, I gathered all employees for an urgent meeting. Everyone, I have great news. The project with Sonic Technology was a huge success, and full implementation has been approved. A loud cheer erupted from the crowd. But this isn't the end, it's just the beginning. We'll use this success as a stepping stone to reach even greater heights and drive change in the entire Japanese IT industry. The employees' eyes sparkled with excitement. I could see great potential in each of them. And now, I'd like to invite the members of the new team who achieved this success to come on stage. Melanie, everyone, please come forward. Melanie and the young team members, looking a bit bashful, stepped up to the stage. These are the people who hold the future of our company and Japan in their hands. Let's give them a big round of applause. The room filled with thunderous applause. And going forward, I want all of you to follow their example. Regardless of age or background, I encourage you to propose new ideas and take on challenges without fear. Our company will support every one of you in these pursuits. After the meeting, Melanie approached me. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. But we're still far from perfect. Melanie, have confidence. Your team's strength is what will drive this company and Japan forward. Keep moving ahead fearlessly. Yes. We'll do our best. Late that night, as I continued working in the office, Travis came by. Mr. Thompson, that was an incredible achievement. I regret not trusting the young team sooner. Travis, it's never too late. From here on out, I'd like you to use your experience to guide them. Yes, I'll do everything I can. Thank you. Our role as experienced seniors is to support the younger generation, creating an environment where they can unleash their full potential. That's our mission. You're absolutely right. I'm honored to play my part. I looked out the window, and the night view sparkled. The lights seemed to symbolize a bright future for our company and for Japan. Travis, we're only halfway there. Let's aim even higher without letting this success make us complacent. Yes, Mr. Thompson. From now on, I'll actively bring forward new ideas. That's the spirit. If we combine your experience with the fresh ideas of the younger team, even greater innovation is bound to happen. In the weeks that followed, the company began to change dramatically. The younger employees grew more confident, and new project proposals started flowing in. Meanwhile, the experienced employees also rallied to support them, fostering a new kind of collaboration that bridged generations. One day, Melanie burst into my office, clearly excited. Mr. Thompson. We've got big news. What's going on, Melanie? Did something happen? Yes. We've received an inquiry about our AI work support platform from a major company. Oh, that's fantastic news. Which company? Global Corporation. They want to implement our system company-wide. Global Corporation? The largest general trading company in Japan. This is huge. Yes. But, honestly, I'm also nervous. Can we really handle such a large project? Melanie, have confidence. You and your team already proved yourselves with Sonic Technologies project. Plus, the whole company will support you if needed. there's no need to worry. Thank you. We'll give it everything we've got. This project marked a major turning point for our company. Securing a deal with a prestigious company like Global Corporation greatly elevated our reputation. Additionally, news of this success rippled across the industry, drawing attention to our innovative approach. 3 months after the project began, the AI work support platform was successfully implemented at Global Corporation. The results were phenomenal. A 30% increase in employment rates for people with disabilities. A 25% improvement in employee job satisfaction. Overall productivity up by 20%. These achievements were prominently featured in industry and economic magazines. Headlines declared, "Tech Innovations Youth-Driven Reforms Transforming Japan's Work Culture." Following this success, we received a flood of new projects and partnership offers. However, with this rapid growth came new challenges. Securing and developing talent, ensuring rigorous quality control, and improving internal communication, all of these issues needed to be addressed. But the employees approached these challenges with a positive attitude. One day, I received an invitation from the Japan Business Federation. They asked me to deliver a keynote speech at a symposium focused on Japan's work style reform. Everyone, listen up. Our work has been recognized, and I've been invited to speak at the Japan Business Federation Symposium. A cheer erupted from the employees. But we can't rest on our laurels. Our journey has only just begun. Let's commit ourselves to changing Japan's entire approach to work. Mr. Thompson, please tell us about your bigger dreams for us. All right. Our next goal is to expand this AI work support platform globally. We'll transform work cultures around the world with this innovative system from Japan. That's our new vision. The employees' eyes shone with excitement. I sensed great potential and passion within each of them. Let's go, everyone. There's still so much to do. Our journey to change the world starts here. A wave of applause swept through the crowd. In that moment, I was certain. Our company would go beyond just being a single business, and it would become a powerful force shaping work culture in Japan and around the world. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. But with this young, passionate team beside me, I knew we could overcome any obstacle. Our challenge was just beginning. Starting with the success at Sonic Technology, Tech Innovations' reputation began to soar. Project after project led by young employees achieved success, attracting attention both within and beyond our industry. Inspired by this momentum, I decided to initiate our next bold reform. I introduced an open HR system for all employees. At a company-wide meeting one morning, I began explaining the new system. Everyone, starting today, we're implementing the open HR system. Under this system, all evaluations and project assignments will be fully transparent. Anyone can apply for a project they're interested in, and the project leader will decide on their inclusion. A buzz went through the crowd. A mix of surprise and anticipation spread among the employees. Additionally, we'll revamp the pay system. Base salaries will be standardized, and large bonuses will be awarded based on performance. This means that even younger employees can earn more than veterans if they achieve significant results. While some senior board members looked displeased, the young employees' eyes lit up with excitement. And finally, all project progress and outcomes will be made publicly available within the company. This will create an environment where everyone can evaluate each other's work and learn together. After this announcement, the company began to move forward rapidly. Many employees actively applied for new projects, and cross-departmental collaboration took off. 1 month later, the effects of the new system began to visibly materialize. The speed of project completion increased by an average of 30%, and customer satisfaction saw a substantial rise. Additionally, our employee engagement survey showed a 40% improvement compared to the previous year. This success started drawing attention from the entire industry. Several major media outlets featured our reforms at Tech Innovation as special reports. One day, I received an invitation from the Japan Business Federation. They asked me to deliver a keynote speech at a symposium on work-style reform in Japan. I took the stage and spoke about our company's reforms. One of the biggest challenges Japanese companies face is not fully harnessing their employees' potential. Removing the barriers of seniority and siloed structures, and creating an environment where every employee can freely express their talents, is the key to fostering innovation. The audience erupted in applause. After the speech, many business leaders asked questions about the details of our reforms. Our company's changes sent a ripple through Japanese corporate culture. While there were still forces clinging to the old ways, the wave of change was undeniably spreading. Back at the office, I smiled with satisfaction. We were only halfway there, but we were steadily moving closer to the ideal company we envisioned. I also felt that this reform could ripple out across Japan as a whole. A year passed since the reforms at Tech Innovation began. The company achieved remarkable growth, establishing itself as an industry leader. One day, I called Melanie into my office. "Melanie, take a look at the results of your AI work support platform." Seeing the data on the large screen, Melanie held her breath. In companies where it was implemented, employment rates for people with disabilities rose by an average of 30%. And their job retention rates increased by 50%. "You've truly made a difference in many people's lives." Tears welled up in Melanie's eyes. "Thank you. But this was only possible with everyone's support. No, this is the result of your talent and hard work. And I have a major announcement to make to you." Melanie looked a bit anxious. "The truth is, I've decided to step down as president next month." "What? But why? The company is on a solid path. I want to leave it in the hands of your generation. And..." I paused briefly. "I'd like to nominate you as the next president." Melanie's face froze in shock. "Me? But I still lack experience." "You have more than enough ability. And above all, you embody our company's values. Harnessing young talent and driving innovation. This is the future of tech innovation." Melanie replied in a trembling voice. "I understand. I'll do my very best. Yes, I'm counting on you." The following week, we held a company-wide assembly. I took the stage to announce my retirement and Melanie's appointment as the new president. The crowd murmured with surprise, but soon erupted in applause. I want to leave you with this: the strength of our company lies in bringing out the full potential of each individual. Here, you're valued for your abilities and ideas, regardless of age or background. Don't ever forget this principle. I handed the microphone quietly to Melanie as she stepped up to the stage. Though nervous, she began to speak in a strong voice. "I was once a new hire who was told to eat lunch in the restroom. But thanks to Mr. Thompson's reforms, I was able to discover my potential. From now on, I will do everything I can to bring out the potential in each of you." The crowd erupted in applause. The young employee's eyes sparkled with hope. I smiled with satisfaction. The company was indeed moving in the right direction. And I was confident that this wave of change would spread throughout Japan. After stepping down, I decided to travel across the country, giving talks at companies and schools. Drawing from my experiences at Tech Innovation, I advocated for work-style reform and innovation. It was the dawn of a new era. And it all began with a chance encounter with a new employee I'd met in front of the restroom. Life often hides turning points in the most unexpected places. A year after being let go from Tech Innovation, Kevin's life had taken a sharp downward turn. After leaving, he joined another major IT firm through his network, but there, too, he attempted to impose outdated personnel management practices, leading to backlash from younger employees. Within 3 months, he was let go for significantly lowering contract employee morale. Kevin then sought jobs at several companies, But rumors from tech innovation had spread across the industry, making it difficult for anyone to consider hiring him. Eventually, Kevin started his own career consulting business. But his outdated values and inflexible approach failed to resonate with modern job seekers. One day, he happened to pass some employees from tech innovation on the street. They were animatedly discussing work, and among them was Melanie. Kevin hid in the shadows, watching them with a complex expression of envy and regret. That night, he sat in his dingy apartment, watching a TV program about tech innovation. On the screen was Melanie, now the company's president, passionately speaking. "Our company is a place where all employees, regardless of age or background, can realize their full potential." Kevin grimaced and turned off the TV. Beside him lay a pile of unsent resumes. Damn. If only I'd been a bit more flexible back then. He sighed deeply, reaching for a bottle of cheap whiskey. Kevin was beginning to realize that his stubbornness had ruined his life. But by then, it was too late. Kevin's downfall starkly illustrated the risks of refusing to change. Through his own mistakes, he'd lost his ticket to a promising future. 2 years after stepping down from tech innovation, my life was filled with a new purpose. I had established the Japanese Corporate Innovation Association and was giving lectures across the country. My lectures were always packed, with many corporate leaders and young employees listening intently. One day, I gave a special lecture at my alma mater. Don't be afraid of change. Change itself is the source of innovation. After the lecture, a student approached me. "Mr. Thompson, I want to start a company like yours someday. But where should I start?" I smiled and replied, "First, have conviction. Then, have the courage to fight for it. The path will open up for you." The student's eyes sparkled. Moments like these brought me my greatest joy. The following month, I was appointed to the Cabinet Office's Work Style Reform Promotion Committee. My experience and insights would now contribute to policymaking on a national level. On weekends, I cherish time with my family. I go out for a picnic with my wife and our 2 children, spending a relaxed day together. It's something I couldn't do before because I was always tied up with work. One evening, I gazed up at the stars from my balcony at home. My wife came and stood beside me. "Honey, do you have any regrets about leaving the company?" I smiled gently. "Not at all. I feel more fulfilled now. I have the chance to make a difference not just for one company, but for all of Japan." She rested her head on my shoulder. "And I get to spend more time with you and the kids." I felt a deep sense of contentment. My life had become everything I'd hoped it would be. The act of trying to save one employee had changed not only my own life but also the future of Japan. The next day, I stepped out of my home with renewed energy, ready for a new lecture. In my eyes shone a hope for a future yet to be seen. The sky stretched endlessly, clear and blue, with thin, wispy white clouds drifting through it. Every day, I found myself gazing at the sky, lost in thoughts of the one I loved most. Though 5 years have passed since then, I'm still unable to shake her memory and move forward. I drift along like one of those clouds, just floating without direction, carried by the flow. Meeting someone happens suddenly, and parting is often just as abrupt. I had promised myself I'd never marry anyone but my wife, yet I was moved by someone who looked just like her. "Will you marry me?" I'd completely forgotten how to love, how to smile. I locked away my emotions, sealing them tightly. But she was the one who managed to open that lock. My name is Alex. Every day, I wake up, go to work, and push through a typical routine, battling my way back home on a packed subway. Oh, right, I turned 30 the other day, but it doesn't really matter to me. It's just another year gone by, and nothing in my life has changed. Friends celebrated with me, I forced a polite smile, drank a bit, and went home to a flavorless birthday. There's a hole in my heart, one that nothing can fill. Emma, who used to be by my side every year to celebrate my birthday, isn't coming back. I met my wife, Emma, back in high school. I confessed my feelings to her under the fireworks on the last day of our school festival. And she said yes. Emma was vibrant, bright, and full of life, a woman everyone admired. "Hey, Alex, your tie is crooked again." The first morning after we started living together as young professionals, I was struggling to tie my tie. Emma sighed at my fumbling but quickly helped me straighten it. "You're pretty good at tying ties. Practicing on some other guy?" I teased her, poking her cheek as it turned as red as a ripe apple. She puffed out her cheeks like a balloon, turned away, and mumbled an excuse. "I practiced on Dad so I wouldn't mess up when I became your wife." "You're the only man outside of my family I'll ever touch like this." I couldn't help but laugh at her straightforward answer. When she pouted, telling me not to laugh, I loved her even more. There was a big height difference between us, so I had to bend down to meet her eyes. When I did that, she'd blush and lean closer to me. This was our morning routine. Even after we got married, we planned to stay a loving couple, even if we had children one day. And that's why it hit me like a bolt from the blue. "Emma." "Oh, no, please, please, open your eyes. God can be so cruel. What had Emma or I done to deserve this?" After losing her so suddenly, I lost interest in everything, sinking into a daze once I sent her off to the heavens. Friends and relatives brought me matchmaking offers, worried about me, but I turned them all down. I couldn't imagine spending my life with anyone but Emma. Even now, 5 years later, it's the same. I find myself staring blankly at the sky, watching thin, white clouds drift slowly, as if swayed by the wind. I wonder if Emma is somewhere beyond that sky. What would she think if she saw me like this now? Day after day, I'm consumed by my memories of Emma, and they weigh down on me, slowly dragging me into a bottomless pit. Perhaps noticing my state, my boss, Tom, suggested something to me. He offered me a 1-year transfer to a branch office in the countryside, starting next month. He described it as a place rich in greenery, with fresh air and a sky full of stars at night. There's a beautiful avenue lined with cherry trees, a bright and sunny beach. The sound of autumn insects you hardly hear in the city, along with winter skies as clear as glass. Tom reminisced about his hometown as he described the healing power of the natural beauty there. Something he thought might soothe my burnt-out spirit. Feeling guilty for causing even my colleagues to worry, I decided to accept the offer. I had been considering moving for a while. Staying here, I couldn't escape Emma's lingering presence. Even at home, I could find no peace. Emma was supposed to be my beloved wife, yet over time, her memory had come to haunt me, like a curse that darkened my heart. If I stay this way, I won't even know how to face her when I see her again someday. Not wanting to turn my cherished wife into a restless spirit, I chose to leave this place. Although I could have taken a company-provided apartment, I preferred to avoid seeing my co-workers outside of work. They all knew my story, and I didn't want their sympathetic glances. People at the new branch probably wouldn't know about my past, but shaking off the weight of my memories would still take time. I decided to find a place where I'd have as little contact with my colleagues as possible. With the company's housing allowance, I rented an apartment I found on my own. Excuse me." A soft voice reached my ears. "My name's Rachel, and I live next door." "Nice to meet you." My first impression of her was that she seemed terribly shy, almost like a ghost fading into the background. Her long bangs even made it hard to read any expression on her face. But since she greeted me, I had no choice but to reply. "I'm Alex." "Nice to meet you too." With that, Rachel quickly bowed and scurried back to her apartment. Since then, for some reason, she'd let out a small gasp whenever she saw me, treating me almost as if I were the ghost. Did I do something wrong? Wondering about it, I settled into life here, and soon 3 months had passed. Eventually, Rachel seemed to get used to my presence. She began greeting me, albeit in a soft, nearly inaudible voice. I'm sorry if I was rude at first. I'm a bit nervous around people. Perhaps it was some form of social anxiety." If so, her timid behavior made sense, and there was no need for me to think too much about it. Then, one day, as I was heading home straight from work, I heard raised voices in front of our apartment building. I didn't know the man, but the woman's voice was unmistakably Rachel's. I didn't want to get involved in any trouble, but the atmosphere was tense, and I couldn't ignore it. "Do you need something from her?" When I asked, both of them turned to look at me. Rachel let out a small gasp, and the man, flustered, quickly left. I'd always been over 6 feet tall, and though I wasn't aware of it, people often said I had a stern look. Emma used to tell me, "You're misunderstood a lot, but you're such a kind person, Alex." The man caught sight of me, then hurriedly disappeared from view. Rachel then bowed her head. Thank you for helping me." Seeing her looking apologetic, I decided not to press her about the incident. "There've been reports of strange men around here lately. It might be dangerous for you to go out alone." I gave her that warning and was about to head back to my room when I felt a strange pull, something stopping me. "You said the other day that you'd let me thank you sometime. So, could I ask now?" That day, she must mean a few days ago. I'd been thinking of Emma, getting dangerously close to a spiral, and ended up drinking alone at a bar after work. I just wanted to forget to erase this feeling somehow. Out of guilt towards Emma, I found myself wishing that this heaviness in my heart would just disappear. Barely managing to get home, my vision blurred, I struggled to get my keys from my bag. With a heavy sigh, I slumped against my door. "I'll stay here and let the night breeze cool my head until I sober up a bit." I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, I was waking up, feeling as if I were being dragged. "Oh, you're awake." It turned out Rachel had found me asleep outside my door, retrieved my keys, and was helping me inside. "I'm sorry. I can manage from here. I'll repay you for this someday." After that, I blacked out, waking up the next morning with a hangover I deeply regretted. Rachel must be talking about that night. When I looked back, Rachel was lightly holding onto the edge of my sleeve. If it's not too much trouble, would you have dinner at my place?" Her face was still hidden under her long bangs, as unreadable as ever. But this time, Rachel, who usually never voiced her own opinions, was expressing one for the first time. "Would that really be a thank you? It almost feels like I'd owe you again." At my words, she lowered her head, looking a bit troubled. Her hair cascaded over her face, concealing it even further. With a silent sigh, I turned fully toward her. "Are you still afraid of me?" She gave a small shudder, and her pale fingers gripping my sleeve trembled slightly. Emma used to brush it off, but given my height and my somewhat intimidating expression, I must seem daunting. Especially to someone as small as Rachel. I chuckled wryly, remembering how even my female co-workers used to say I looked intimidating. Then, as the big guy I am, I looked down at her, noticing how she seemed to shrink slightly under my gaze. To meet her eyes, I slowly bent down. Even though I tried to make eye contact, her hair fell in the way, making it hard to see her eyes. I didn't want to make her more nervous, so I spoke gently. "I have no reason to refuse. I haven't done any grocery shopping today, so if you're offering, I'd be grateful." "If that's what you'd like, Rachel." As I said this, I thought I saw a faint smile on her face. And with it, a strange feeling began to settle in my chest. I'd never been swayed by a woman's words before, so I couldn't quite understand why Rachel's words affected me now. Perhaps it was just that I felt unable to leave someone who seemed so fragile to face things alone. I decided to accept this feeling for what it was and let it pass. Upon entering her apartment, though, something felt off right away. In the shoe rack sat a pair of men's shoes, and a large suit jacket hung neatly on the rack by the door. Spotless and carefully maintained, it was clear someone else lived here. The coffee cup Rachel handed me was also a matching pair, hinting at the presence of a man in her life. And there it was again. That same strange feeling, now morphing into something darker, closer to resentment. No, I have no right to feel this way. I'd sworn to always love Emma, hadn't I? Silencing my own conflicting thoughts, I took another look around. It was clear now that someone else shared this space. I'd assumed Rachel lived alone, but evidently, I was wrong. I'd only ever seen her coming and going by herself, and there was never any sign of a man. So, then, a semi-live-in situation, perhaps? If you have a partner, wouldn't he be uncomfortable with you inviting someone like me over? I'd be fine with a different way of saying thanks, if that's the case. The question itself held no ulterior motive, it was just something I asked directly. So why did my words falter at the end? Well, had I said something offensive without realizing it? The thought made me uneasy for a moment. I noticed small droplets falling by Rachel's feet. It was as if all the emotions she had been holding back were now overflowing, forming a small puddle there. For some reason, I had made her cry. Realizing this, I quickly apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it in a strange way. But Rachel shook her head slowly and heavily. No, it's not that. Despite her words, her tears continued to fall, unchecked. Realizing this wasn't going anywhere, I gently guided her to sit on the sofa. She settled down quietly, her eyes tightly shut as if trying to endure something. Seeing her like that, I found myself unexpectedly projecting my own experiences onto her. For a while, I watched her from a short distance, glancing at my phone as I kept an eye on her until she calmed down. I figured she wouldn't want to be stared at while she was crying, so this was my own clumsy way of being considerate. Aren't you supposed to say something comforting in times like these? A voice drifted through my mind. Emma wasn't here, and no matter where I searched in this world, I'd never find her again. Still, even if she had been here, Rachel and I were nothing more than neighbors, nothing more or less. So I just stayed quiet, doing the only thing I felt I could, waiting. A few minutes later, her sobs finally began to subside, and she spoke quietly. I'm sorry you had to see that. No, it's fine. In my usual, unthinking way, that was all I could say. The silence that followed filled the room, resonating against the walls bathed in the amber light of sunset. Broken only by the sound of our breathing. After a while, Rachel looked up slightly. The photo on that shelf. Following her gaze, I saw a framed photo of a couple. The man looked down at the woman with a gentle, affectionate gaze. The woman, modestly yet affectionately, wrapped her hand around his waist and looked up at him with eyes full of love. In a subdued tone, Rachel spoke. That's my husband. He passed away. Her words hit me hard, tightening something in my chest. The presence I'd sensed here wasn't just some imagined feeling, it was the lingering traces of her late husband. I believe, Alex, you also lost your wife before her time, didn't you? I vaguely remembered mentioning it in passing to one of the older ladies in the neighborhood. She had asked why I still wore a ring on my left hand, and when I explained, she'd looked at me with sympathy. I'd never wanted anyone's pity, which is why I usually kept quiet about it, but I hadn't expected her to remember. It's been 5 years now. I'm just a man who can't seem to move on, clinging to the memory of his wife. If anything, I'd prefer if people laughed it off rather than pitying me for it. I slowly closed my eyes. Whenever I did, Emma's bright smile and the sound of her laughter came to mind, vivid like sunlight. Maybe, no matter what, I'll never be able to forget her. Then, as if sensing the thoughts swirling inside me, Rachel spoke, cutting right to the heart of it. Even after rising to the heavens, would a spouse truly be happy to know that the one they left behind can't let go of them? I opened my eyes. As my feelings for Emma gradually transformed into a lingering attachment, binding me, could I still call it love? I couldn't answer Rachel's question. To think that Rachel, too, had lost her beloved partner. And, like me, she hadn't been able to break free from the sorrow of that loss, continuing her life on autopilot. My husband passed away 3 years ago. Since that day, this room has been frozen in time. His suit, his bag, his shoes. Everything remains exactly as it was. I haven't been able to escape that moment. She couldn't bring herself to clear away his belongings because it would make his absence feel final, leaving her too heartbroken to handle his possessions. I understood that feeling all too well. Even though I'd moved here, I still kept my place in New York. And besides, I've left all of Emma's belongings just as they were. I could now see why Rachel had left her husband's things as they were and why she held on to such heavy emotions. And yet, there was one thing I couldn't understand. You still think about him, don't you? So why invite me here? Rachel looked at me with a resolute expression, and, seemingly without reason, she said, "Please, marry me." She tilted her head slightly to the side, and her heavy bangs slowly followed the pull of gravity, drifting softly. Then, one dark, hollow eye devoid of any highlight fixed intently on me. It was as if I were being watched by a predator. My body froze, unable to move. Her eyes held a color that was uniquely haunting. They looked like the endless depths of darkness, as if all dreams and hopes for tomorrow had been drained. The eyes of someone familiar with despair. I recognized them immediately. Once, after losing Emma, I looked in the mirror for the first time and saw my own eyes. Rachel now had those same eyes. I swallowed hard and managed to speak. "What do you mean by that? We've only known each other a short time, and we're not even together. So why bring up marriage all of a sudden?" As if anticipating my reaction, Rachel replied in a calm voice. "We should use each other. So, please, let me use you, and use me in return." I couldn't look away from her eyes. And just like that, a week passed. I barely remembered what happened after that. We had dinner together, exchanged few words, and I returned to my apartment. But all night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about her proposal. The shock of her sudden offer to marry was one thing, but her words about using each other. I hadn't fully grasped what she meant, and I ended up declining her proposal, at least for the time being. But that night continued to haunt me, replaying in my mind even at work. No matter how much I thought about it, no clear answer emerged, and time marched on relentlessly. Lately, work had kept me busy, with little chance to go home, staying overnight at the office or at nearby hotels. Occasionally, I'd swing by my place to pick up some belongings, usually well past midnight. Before I knew it, 2 months had flown by since that strange proposal. This hectic schedule meant I naturally hadn't seen Rachel at all. And yet, inexplicably, I found myself thinking, I want to see Rachel. Unlike the superficial relationships I had back in New York, I'd connected with various people since moving here. But the person I'd spent the most meaningful time with was my neighbor, Rachel. "I didn't realize you look so beautiful when you smile, Alex." I remembered the day she said that, and the memory constricted my chest. Somehow, I'd found myself smiling naturally in her presence, even though I'd forgotten how to. There was no question about what those feelings meant. That evening had created a rift, but little by little, I'd started to become aware of my feelings for her. That was precisely why her sudden proposal had thrown me, making me feel I needed time and distance to think. Fortunately, I could use work as a legitimate excuse to keep that distance. But at the same time, I was beginning to lose the confidence to face her directly. I worried that the next time I met her gaze, I might lose myself and be overcome by some impulse I couldn't control. Wasn't this a betrayal of Emma? The thought knotted me, and without realizing it, I'd started avoiding Rachel. It was pathetic. But if I looked into those eyes again, I was certain. From within, an intense passion pounds loudly, knocking. It commands me, let it out now. Somehow, without realizing it, my feelings for Rachel had grown so intense that they scared me. I wanted to see her smile, to be the one to wipe away those sorrowful tears. Yet, the only person I'm supposed to love is Emma. For 5 years, I tried to lock my heart away, sealing it under the weight of self-imposed vows. No matter how many times people brought up marriage prospects, I'd rejected them, determined to spend my remaining days with Emma's memory alone. And yet, now, my emotions were surging from within, demanding to break free. I had to keep any love I felt sealed for Emma alone. The inner struggle tore at me, leaving me in a constant state of indecision. No, with these feelings, I don't know what I might do. I can't meet Rachel yet. I spoke the words aloud, as if trying to convince myself. Even so, the day would inevitably come when I'd return home, once the work settled down. And that day turned out to be a turning point. When I finally returned to the apartment, as if on cue, Rachel stepped out of her room. Her pale lips began to move slowly. "Have you made your decision?" I was about to say that I couldn't possibly have reached one, but the words stopped short. A tightness gripped my chest, as if my heart were being squeezed. Rachel pushed her long bangs aside, her fingers brushing over her face. "If I do this, would it shake your resolve?" The seconds that followed felt unbearably long. The pressure in my chest grew stronger, and I realized my breathing had grown shallow. I was utterly shaken. "Emma." In a hoarse voice, I uttered the name of my beloved. To Rachel, and no one else. Standing before me was undoubtedly Rachel. There was no doubt. I knew it with 100% certainty. And yet, what I saw was Emma. The surreal image made my head spin, and I instinctively covered half my face with one hand. What's happening? She's gone. Am I so exhausted that I'm hallucinating now? It had been so long since my heart had felt this unsteady. Like that day, when I traced my fingers over Emma's cold cheek. Unsure of what to do, tears began to spill from my eyes. And then, Rachel delivered the final blow. "Please, marry me." How much time passed after that, I don't know. Minutes, maybe hours? The sun had long since set, and the warm glow of a single light filled the room where we stood. In the end, I married the woman who was, in so many ways, a reflection of my beloved wife. To put it simply, I don't regret it, but my emotions are tangled, and my thoughts haven't caught up. Emma is gone, a presence forever beyond my reach. I knew that in my mind, but seeing Rachel smile at me so beautifully, so effortlessly capturing my heart, the passion I'd held back had finally overflowed. And in that instant, I came to a single conclusion. Standing beside me was Rachel, still hiding her expression under long bangs. It must have surprised you, but I'm actually Emma's twin sister. I remembered Emma mentioning it once. My parents divorced when I was young, and I was too young to remember, but I found out later that I had a sister. To think that this twin sister, the one I'd thought of as only a distant part of Emma's past, was standing right here, as Rachel. Though Rachel had a different air about her, she and Emma were identical twins, and the shock of that resemblance hit me deeply. I have no connection with my sister. I only learned the name Emma when I obtained a copy of the family registry while getting married. One day, though, I found you slumped outside the door, terribly drunk. I heard you murmur, "Emma," in that moment. When I was helping you inside and looked for your keys, I noticed a photo in your keychain, and there I was, or rather, my sister. Rachel took a breath and went on. "You can use me if you need to. I'm the long-lost sister of your beloved Emma. And I need you to help me move forward from my husband's death. That's why I need this marriage." As she spoke, Rachel took a pair of hair-cutting scissors from somewhere and handed them to me. After my husband passed, I couldn't bear the sympathetic looks everyone gave me. So I grew my bangs out to hide my emotions and protect myself. Could you, with those hands of yours, help cut away these remnants of my past? Why me? I did love Emma, and you're her identical twin. But you have no reason to use me, do you? If it's a man you wanted, there are plenty of others out there. So why? She remained completely still. She exuded an air that all but said, "If you want to know more, do exactly as I've instructed." Reluctantly, I took the scissors and moved my fingers as directed, cutting through her bangs. Bit by bit, the heavy veil that had covered her face fell away. A few minutes later, she slowly lifted her head, and for the first time, I looked directly into both of her eyes. She was indeed the mirror image of Emma, but unlike Emma's bright and lively spirit, she radiated a deep melancholy. And yet, as I saw her, the image of the one I had loved overlapped with hers, overwhelming me with emotions and leaving me frozen, unable to move. Is this face too painful for you to look at? I'll tell you everything. Can you stand up? I took her hand and guided her to the sofa. In the next moment, Rachel placed her hands on the floor, aligning her fingertips precisely, and pressed her forehead down against them. She had taken on a posture of complete submission. It was the first time. After losing my husband, you were the only man who looked at me without pity, seeing me as an equal. I am, without a doubt, drawn to you, Alex. I deeply regret that I pushed you into marriage, taking advantage of the wound left by my sister. But I can't shake the feeling that, finally, I'm ready to move forward. With you, a person who's felt the same pain, I want to join hands and dare to dream of a hopeful future once more. Hearing her say all that, I let out a dry laugh. It wasn't out of mockery, I was just exasperated with myself for making her say those things. Marriage, people often do it on impulse. Whether it's a mistake or success, you don't know until later. Please, Rachel, sit up. She flinched at the sound of her name. Yes, it's true, I looked at you and saw Emma, my beloved wife. That's an undeniable fact. But there's one thing I want to make absolutely clear, I, too, hold feelings for you deep within my heart. I've kept my love for anyone sealed away, buried under thoughts of Emma. But I've wanted to set it free. And it was you, Rachel, who unlocked it. Just as she had helped me into my apartment that night, she had somehow slipped into the depths of my heart, bringing back emotions I thought I'd buried. I ran away that day, not because of Emma, but because I felt I owed you an apology. Someone like me shouldn't be feeling this way. I love you. But it feels wrong to keep loving you. I've been struggling with this conflict for so long. We had both been broken by grief, each bearing our own deep scars. In the beginning, it was just about sharing that understanding. But somewhere along the way, we had started to long for each other, reaching out even more than we had to our late spouses. It's been 5 years since I lost Emma. I'll never forget her, but if I continue to keep myself trapped, I feel like she'd be angry with me. I think she'd want me to move forward, to take the chance at happiness. I've been afraid of grasping it. But with you, someone who's also hurt like me, I feel like I might find the courage to reach for it again. This marriage was my choice, too. While it may have begun impulsively and with hesitation, I knew now that I truly loved Rachel. Not as Emma's replacement, but as someone unique and precious in her own right, someone I wanted to protect. I don't know where this path will take us, but sometimes it's best to go with the flow. You're not Emma, you're Rachel, someone worth cherishing. And I swear here and now, I will never use you. Will you give me your answer? I felt the corners of my mouth lift into a gentle smile. How long had it been since I genuinely smiled? My days with Emma had been full of joy, but in losing her, I'd lost the very memory of how to smile. Meeting Rachel had changed that, bringing back the courage to love again. I remembered what it felt like to laugh. Gently, I wrapped my arms around her small, trembling form, careful not to break her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should have just told you from the start that I cared for you, Alex. But I was scared. Please, don't hate me. She whispered, her voice barely audible. Holding her a bit more tightly, I felt her small body stop trembling. Thank you for caring about me. And thank you for teaching me to love again. We had both been wounded and had faced our own despair. Perhaps that's why Emma and her husband had brought us together, guiding us to each other. Humans are such fleeting creatures. Once we are born, it's only natural that we will someday pass away. But that doesn't mean it's a final goodbye. Even when the body fades, and we can no longer see each other in this life, the heart remains connected, a thin, unbroken thread that stretches on. And through that connection, new hope and encounters can be born. For Emma, I resolved to face forward and take that step, fully aware of the new person I'd sworn to protect this time. Slowly, I leaned in, casting a shadow over her face. If you get it right, you can do whatever you want with me. On a company trip, two departments, known for being like cats and dogs, happened to bump into each other. At the dinner venue, the atmosphere between the two departments was tense, on the verge of exploding. As a result, I ended up representing our department, while the other department was represented by a well-known beauty and the CEO's daughter, Mia. The challenge was for Mia, a Tokyo University graduate, to pose a difficult question to me and see if I could answer it. Confidently, Mia taunted me. If you can solve this problem, you can do whatever you want. Think you can handle it? Yes, I've already solved it. What? Wait, really? Everyone turned to look at me in astonishment. My name is Alex, and I'm 22 years old. Currently, I work for a large company called Nelson Manufacturing. Given my age, people often assume I must be some top-notch college grad, but that's far from the truth. My highest level of education is middle school. I went straight into work after graduation. And the company I joined initially wasn't this big corporation. I'm the eldest in a family of 7, my parents and 5 siblings. With 7 mouths to feed, my parents' income alone wasn't enough, and we lived a frugal life. As the eldest, it was my responsibility to look after my younger siblings from an early age. So, I always knew I'd start working young to help support my family. Fortunately, my parents had wide social connections, so even with a middle school education, I had job opportunities. Through my parents, I got a job at a nearby factory. The factory mainly made car parts, supplying them to the automotive manufacturer Nelson Manufacturing. The factory president, Sam, and my father had been close friends for years. With the connection I had from him looking after me when I was little, I decided to join the company and had been grateful for his support ever since. Despite my background, I was truly thankful to be able to work as a full-time employee. Naturally, I assumed I'd spend my life working there. But as time passed, the dynamics between us began to change. At some point, our relationship had shifted from that of an acquaintance, a man and a child, to that of an employee and a company president. Then, one day, an argument between Sam and me worsened things. The argument started because I and a few other employees voiced complaints about the work environment. We wanted better conditions at the factory, so we made various suggestions to Sam. However, Sam had managed to get by in this situation up until now. He insisted he had no intention of changing the old ways, which led to a disagreement and eventually turned into an argument. This happened in my 5th year working under him. Although, in the end, it was merely a suggestion from a single employee. Unable to offer any further opinions, I continued working in the factory as usual, but the atmosphere at the workplace was terrible. Then, one day, Nelson Manufacturing's CEO, Mr. Nelson himself, came for a regular inspection. Sam and Mr. Nelson seemed friendly, with the CEO's visit feeling more like a social check-in. They exchanged greetings happily before heading to the office to chat. A few hours later, Sam came out and called my name. Apparently, Mr. Nelson himself was asking for me. Naturally, there's no real connection between Mr. Nelson and me. I never imagined I'd be called in, so I couldn't help but be surprised. I felt a surge of surprise and nervous tension, wondering what he might want to say. The other employees glanced at me curiously. Gathering my courage, I knocked on the door to the CEO's office and stepped inside. To my surprise, Sam wasn't coming in with me. It was just Mr. Nelson and me, alone in the room. The nerves and sense of isolation made me feel even smaller. Don't be so tense. I'm just a person, too, you know. Well. I'm just a little awestruck to be here alone with you. Sam told me you were feisty, but you're like a cat out of water right now. Yeah, I suppose I am. Fair enough. Now, the reason I called you in was to discuss this. He showed me a few sheets of paper, the very documents that had sparked my argument with Sam. The papers outlined ideas for improving the work environment at the factory. I heard you came up with all of this on your own. Is that true? Yes, that's right. That's quite an ambitious proposal. I sensed a weight in his words that hadn't been there earlier. But it's a great idea. Oh, thank you. So, I have a suggestion. Why don't you come work for us? Excuse me? He was offering me a job, not just any job, but a transfer from the local factory to the development department at Nelson Manufacturing. I had braced myself, expecting him to scold me, just like Sam, for causing trouble, but instead, he praised my ideas and made this unexpected offer. Moreover, it's rare to receive a direct invitation from Mr. Nelson himself. It's something I'm genuinely happy about, especially since my relationship with Sam has been strained lately. The workplace atmosphere remains tense as well. I knew my proposals had played a part in creating this tension, but honestly, I'd been wanting to get out of that strained environment. I was inclined to accept the offer. Still, I knew I had to discuss it with Sam first. So, I told Mr. Nelson I'd get back to him. After he left, I returned to Sam's office and informed him of the offer and my interest in working at Nelson Manufacturing. Sam looked out the office window, so I couldn't see his expression. Then he said just one thing. Do what you want. He said so. It was the first time we'd spoken since our argument. Despite everything, I was deeply grateful to Sam for giving me my start. Though I didn't know how he truly felt, I bowed deeply and said, "Thank you." And that's how I transitioned to working for a major car manufacturer. Naturally, there weren't many people here with only a middle school education. The only knowledge I had was related to car parts from my factory days and general information. When I joined, I felt the judging eyes around me, and I was mostly isolated in the company. I wasn't particularly skilled at making conversation, and my attempts to talk to others often fell flat, so for several months, I struggled with loneliness. It's like back then all over again. One day, when I was feeling uncertain about whether I could keep up in the development department, an employee named Henry, wanting to see what I was capable of, brought me onto the new car development project as a support member. Though I was nervous, I was motivated by this first big responsibility. Since joining, I'd been studying hard to gain the necessary knowledge, and thankfully, the project went smoothly, finishing without any major issues. Henry, thank you so much for your help this time. No problem at all. So, how did you feel about the work? Think you can manage it? Yes, thanks to you. I wasn't a burden, was I? A burden? Not at all. Honestly, compared to most people when they first start, you did great. Everyone talks about education and all that. But it's clearly not just about degrees. I knew I had a good eye for talent. As he said this, he gave me a firm pat on the shoulder. It hurt a bit, but his words mixed with that pain made me genuinely happy. Plus, you came up with ideas no one else would even consider. You're like a genius of innovation. Oh, don't flatter me. I'm not flattering you. I really mean it. Thank you. But there's still plenty to learn, so keep working hard. I will. This experience was a turning point as I continued to deliver results. The other employees gradually began to recognize me as a member of the development team. By the time my second year had passed, I no longer felt isolated and was able to work well with everyone in the team. It was all thanks to Henry's encouragement that day. One day, an invitation to the company trip came my way. In my first year, I'd received an invite, but, feeling isolated back then, I turned it down. But now, I thought I might actually enjoy it. Wanting to get to know my co-workers better, I decided to join this year. Apparently, the destination for this year's trip was the same as last year. Some employees looked a bit disappointed, thinking it would be just a repeat. However, this time, there was one difference: the sales department would be at the same location on the same dates. The development and sales departments were known to have a bit of a cat and dog relationship. Their work styles seemed to clash, leading to frequent disagreements. Hearing this, a lot of employees seemed even less excited about the trip. But then Henry spoke up. "Hey, but the CEO's daughter, Mia, is in the sales department, you know?" At that moment, the previously subdued mood brightened up a bit. People began murmuring, "That's true, and it'd be worth it just to see her." Watching everyone's reactions, Henry grinned triumphantly. The CEO's daughter's name is Mia. As Mr. Nelson's only daughter, she has a reputation for being very beautiful, as is evident from everyone's reactions. With her elegant appearance and Tokyo University degree, she was admired as both intelligent and graceful. She applied her talents at work and was making a name for herself. Her personality was gentle and poised, with a friendly demeanor. I'd heard that during a previous dispute between our departments, she'd helped smooth things over more peacefully than usual. Despite her popularity, her status as the CEO's daughter seemed to set her apart, and she was somewhat isolated within the company. However, she didn't seem to let it bother her. Though her circumstances were the opposite of mine, in a strange way, I felt we were similar. Yet she also felt like someone from a completely different world. To everyone else, she was like someone to be admired from afar. Just the thought of sharing the same lodging with her was enough to cause a buzz among the employees. What's more, we're staying at the same place, Henry announced, and the whole group erupted in excitement. The noise level was so high that people in the hallway began peeking in to see what was going on. Just like that, Mia's presence lifted the entire mood, and soon, the day of the trip arrived. While we were headed to the same destination, it didn't mean we'd be traveling together. Each department had different sightseeing spots lined up, and after a day of sightseeing, as our bus approached the lodging, we spotted another bus, presumably from the sales department, parked out front. "Hey! Look over there!" Following my coworker's gaze, I spotted her right away. Her presence, elegance, and aura made her stand out even from a distance. "Wow, you can tell it's her from way over here." As expected of the CEO's daughter. We're lucky to have her around. To be honest, since it was only my second year and I hadn't yet crossed paths with her on any projects, I'd never actually seen Mia before. But even to my eyes, she stood out as distinctly different from the other employees. She was beautiful, yet there was a slight coldness in her expression. While everyone around her was happily chatting and laughing, Mia maintained her composed demeanor, not cracking a smile. Unlike me, she seemed completely at ease being alone in a crowd. It made me realize again that she was a different kind of person altogether. By the way, I heard we're sharing the same dining hall for dinner. When Henry said that, everyone looked at him in surprise. Their reactions varied, some just looked surprised, others seemed pleased, while a few looked a bit uncomfortable. Apparently, one of our teams had a major dispute with someone from sales just a few days ago over an ongoing project. Things were still tense, and they hadn't managed to resolve it yet. "Hey, I'm sure they won't bring up work while we're here to have fun. It'll be fine," Henry said cheerfully. Encouraged by his optimism, the others relaxed a little. Then, it was time for dinner. The dining hall was a spacious, traditional Japanese banquet room. As soon as we bumped into each other at the entrance, a palpable tension filled the air. Both sides eyed each other warily before giving slight nods and entering the hall together. Though we were in the same room, the seating was arranged separately by department, so dinner itself progressed smoothly. I'm also having a meal, chatting casually with Henry and a few others. The conversation was mostly about work, but since everyone here loves cars, the discussion was lively and animated. After a few hours, with drinks flowing, the atmosphere reached a peak of cheerfulness. People started moving around, mingling at different tables. Needing a break from the drinks, I stayed at my seat for a bit, quietly enjoying a moment to myself. Even though being alone wasn't usually my thing, I needed a breather. Watching everyone else laughing and enjoying themselves made me smile. I wonder, what's she doing right now? Curious, I glanced over at the sales department. Amidst all the cheerful chatter, Mia sat alone, quietly eating at the far end of the room. Her expression was almost exactly the same as it had been at the entrance, calm and unwavering. She must be pretty good with alcohol too, totally different from me, I thought, catching myself getting lost in her beauty. Just then, a loud voice rang out from across the room. The lively chatter instantly halted, and I turned to see what was happening. A couple of employees from sales and development were glaring at each other. Apparently, someone had spilled their drink during a seat change, and it had splashed all over one of our guys from development. A visible stain marked his clothes. "You jerk, look what you did." "Hey, maybe if you weren't so clumsy, it wouldn't have happened." "What did you just say?" In an instant, the air became tense, as if a fight could break out at any second. Henry and one of the sales guys quickly stepped in to mediate. Hey, let's not get into it. It's just clothes, they'll dry by tomorrow, right?" "Oh yeah? Must be nice for development to wear casual clothes." "I'd love to work in casual clothes too." "But you're always wearing the same thing. Aren't you?" "Oh. So what, you're saying I've got no style? Trying to start something?" "Yeah, and what if I am?" Despite Henry and the sales guy stepping in, the two were on the verge of a brawl. "Fine, if you're buying it, I'm selling it." The standoff felt like it lasted forever, each second dragging on like an hour. But then, it wasn't the guy with the spilled drink who shouted, it was Henry. Everyone turned, stunned, their eyes locked on Henry. Even the two who had been glaring at each other froze, too shocked to respond. Ignoring everyone else, Henry went on confidently. "After all, we've got a genius of ideas right here." With that, Henry pointed directly at me. "What?" For a moment, I didn't understand what he meant. But when everyone turned their gaze toward me after his statement, I realized he was talking about me, and the alcohol's effect instantly wore off. Though confused, I followed Henry's beckoning without a second thought. Then, the mediator from the sales department seemed to catch on and said enthusiastically, "If your genius of ideas can't solve a problem from our Tokyo grad genius, then who can, right?" Everyone in the sales department turned to look, startled, at the woman in question. Cautiously, they all directed their gaze to a certain point in the room. Sitting off to the side and eating her meal was Mia. Hearing this, she quietly stood up and started walking toward us. "Oh, right. Alex didn't even go to high school, did he? Think you can handle a Tokyo University level problem?" The mediator nudged, and she locked eyes with me and presented her challenge. It was a physics problem. When she finished presenting the problem, the room went silent. No one in the sales department specialized in physics. They exchanged puzzled looks, clearly baffled. In the development department, a few people had studied physics, yet even they were scratching their heads and looking stumped. Watching this, Mia said softly, "If you solve it, you can do whatever you want with me." At those words, every eye in the room was fixed on Mia. I also found myself mesmerized by her words, just like everyone else. "Wait, Mia? That's a bit much, isn't it?" The sales mediator, clearly taken aback, hadn't expected her to say something like that. It wasn't like Mia to make such a bold statement. Though I briefly wondered if she'd had too much to drink, her expression was entirely serious. "Anything you want." As she said it again, the surrounding crowd burst into cheers. "She said he can do anything if he solves it. What would you ask her to do if you were him?" "If it were me, I'd start by asking for her number." "That's where you'd begin?" Amidst the cheers, I caught these snippets here and there. Henry clapped me on the shoulder and said, "She must have given you a seriously tough problem. Think you can solve it? Because if you do, you get that gorgeous woman." Henry was always upbeat, but his energy was at an all-time high now. Suddenly, memories from before I joined Nelson Manufacturing came to mind when I worked under Sam. Back at that factory, we'd made suspension systems, a part of a car's chassis. At first, I didn't understand a thing, but I ended up studying suspensions and everything related to them for work. So, do you think you can solve it? Yes, I've already solved it. Alright, wait, what? Through my work with suspensions, I'd also studied physics. What started as casual learning became a deep dive, and I ended up with a thorough understanding of it. Everyone was stunned by my response, Henry included, as if he couldn't believe his ears. The person who'd posed the problem was equally wide-eyed. Ignoring their astonishment, I stated the answer, and she lowered her gaze and mumbled, "Correct." With that word, the room exploded in excitement once again. The two departments that had been on the verge of conflict just a moment ago were now celebrating together, arms around each other in camaraderie. By the time dinner wrapped up and we left the venue, the two people who had sparked the whole quarrel were smiling and had reconciled. Seeing this, I felt a sense of relief. But at the same time, I was hit with a wave of exhaustion. Likely from the intense atmosphere earlier and the pressure of being the center of everyone's attention. While everyone else talked about heading out for drinks for a second round, I politely declined and decided to return to my room. As I made my way to the elevator, I noticed Mia already standing there, waiting. Noticing me as well, she gave a slight nod and spoke up. "Thank you for earlier." My department caused quite a stir. "Oh, not at all. I'm just glad things settled down. And that's really thanks to you, Mia. I didn't do much." "It was thanks to you for solving that problem, Alex." "Oh? You know my name?" "Of course. I'm in the sales department, so remembering names is my specialty." "You're the one my father scouted from Sam's place, right? I can't believe you know that much, and you know Sam, too?" "Yes. He looked after me a lot when I was young. My father was always busy, so I spent plenty of time at the factory, and he was often my playmate." "Is that so?" "Actually, Sam and my family go way back. We've known each other for years." "Really? How's he been lately?" The truth was, I hadn't been in touch with him at all. We'd kept in touch about personal matters, but it had been 2 years since our last contact. Seeing my hesitation, she kindly changed the subject. "You solved that problem so quickly. Was middle school really your last formal education?" "Oh, it was just luck. I picked up a bit of physics knowledge through my work. If you could solve that problem, that's more than a bit. I could say the same for you, Mia." I wouldn't expect someone in sales to know physics at that level. "Well, it's more because of my family. My father's company is an auto manufacturer, so I studied hard to impress him, and I guess it stuck." "Even so, it's impressive how much you know. And that comment you made, it surprised me. I didn't expect you'd say something like that. Especially since we just met. Do I seem like the type who doesn't know how to have fun?" "Oh, no. I didn't mean that. It's all right. Most people get that impression at first. But actually, I did pick up the basics of socializing in college. Of course, I can't imagine someone as beautiful as you wouldn't have admirers." "Thank you, that's kind of you." She looked slightly embarrassed, smiling in a way that caught me off guard. Seeing her, usually so composed, smile like that, I couldn't help but feel a sudden flutter. But then, her expression grew somber as she continued. "Even so, people in my department tend to misunderstand me, thinking I'm a loner or something." "Really?" "Yes. I always feel a bit like an outsider." In fact, from an outsider's perspective, she does seem a bit out of place. I was a bit surprised by those words, though, as I thought she was the type of person who wouldn't care about such things. "Honestly, I did think that a little when I first saw you. Right? I've been like this since forever. Even in school, being the CEO's daughter made me a bit of an outcast. I made a few friends in college, but no one I stayed in touch with after graduating. Maybe it was the alcohol, but she seemed to be letting down her guard, confiding in me with a hint of vulnerability. Her usual calm demeanor softened, and she looked as though she might cry at any moment. Do you think maybe my expressionless face is part of the problem? Oh, not at all. You're not expressionless at all. Your face has been showing all kinds of emotions tonight, and you look really adorable. As soon as I said it, I realized what I'd blurted out. I hadn't meant to say so much, but seeing her grow quieter and sadder, I just couldn't help myself. Sorry. I didn't mean. That probably sounded like I was hitting on you, didn't it? No. You were just trying to cheer me up, right? Thank you. She seemed a bit flustered too, perhaps caught off guard by my words. After a brief silence, the elevator chimed, signaling its arrival. I asked her what floor she was heading to, pressed the button, and the elevator began its ascent. You know, I didn't expect this. What do you mean? When I first saw you, I thought you were the type who preferred being alone. Her expression seemed to fall at those words. If you don't mind, would you let me help? What? I've been through something similar myself. Really? Yeah. My family was close, but we were poor, and that made my school life pretty rough. It's different from your experience. But I was an outsider too, so I understand how hard it can be. Remembering those days still made my chest tighten. After middle school, I decided to work instead of going to high school, not just because of family circumstances, but also because I didn't want to experience that same isolation again. I see. Sorry if it's sudden and intrusive, but I feel like I'm looking at my younger self in you, so I just want to help. Oh, no, it's not that. But I wouldn't want to trouble you with this. Hey, you did say I could do whatever I wanted if I solved that problem, right? Oh. Does that mean you'll do whatever I ask? Then please, let me help you. She let out a small laugh. I've never had anyone use their wish on something like this. If you're going to insist, maybe I will take you up on it. And so, I ended up helping her work on her reputation in the company. Alright then, let's get started, Mia. She gave me a mischievous smile. Yes, Alex. When she said my name with that warm smile, my heart skipped a beat. Then, with a brighter expression, she said, You know, this might be the first time I've really opened up like this. Don't say things like that. You're going to make me misunderstand. Alex, you're surprisingly pure-hearted, aren't you? What? No way. She tilted her head slightly, looking right at me with an amused glint in her eyes. Don't tease me. I'm not teasing. But if it's you, maybe I wouldn't mind if you did misunderstand. It turns out Mia wasn't just the talented, kind, and elegant CEO's daughter, she also had a side that could easily throw me off balance. After that, as I promised, I started helping her, and before I knew it, her reputation had transformed. She was no longer seen as a silent, stoic figure. Now, people saw her as a cool but warm-hearted person who was willing to lend a hand to others. Compared to before, she'd become approachable, someone people found easy to talk to. Far from being isolated in her department, she'd become so popular that she apparently even had her own fan club. Her new reputation had even reached the development department, typically at odds with sales. Hey, I heard Mia's changed a lot lately. Yeah, I heard that too. They say she's way easier to talk to now. Maybe I should try talking to her. Who knows? I might get close to her. Yeah, right. You'd probably pass out within a minute. Because she's so gorgeous? Too gorgeous. Yeah, I guess you're right. There's even a rumor that she has a boyfriend now. What? Really? Well, they say having a partner can change a person. Hearing these rumors spreading around the office made me feel a pang of anxiety. Because, in fact, Mia and I had started dating. Just before we'd gotten off the elevator that night, we'd exchanged contact information, and after the company retreat, we'd kept in touch. As we got to know each other, we discovered a shared passion for cooking. Soon, we were visiting each other's places on weekends, preparing meals together. Our relationship deepened, and eventually, I confessed my feelings, and we started dating. No one else at the company knew about it yet. So naturally, I was nervous about what Mia's fan club and the others might say if our relationship were discovered. When I shared my worries with her, Mia gave me a confident reply. "If it comes to that, I'll protect you." Watching her say that, I understood why she had such a following. As for me, thanks to Henry's encouragement, I had been assigned to lead my first project alone. The project was the development of a new suspension system. Apparently, my experience working at a suspension factory played a part in my selection. Henry mentioned that it was almost unheard of for someone as young as 22 to lead a project, making this an exceptional opportunity. People from the external factory, where the mass production will actually take place, are also coming for this project. This, of course, means that people from the factory where I used to work will also be here. On the first day of the project, I ran into Sam in the hallway outside the conference room. It had been about 2 years since we last met, after that tense conversation in the president's office. Because we had parted on awkward terms, I hadn't spoken to him since. "Doing well?" During a short break in the meeting, as I was taking a breather in front of the vending machine in the office, I heard a voice from behind. It was a familiar, nostalgic voice I hadn't heard in years. I turned around to see Sam standing there. "Yes. Good." I hadn't expected him to initiate a conversation, so I responded awkwardly, unsure of what to say. Still, I had long regretted that I'd caused trouble for him with my impulsive proposal, affecting the workplace atmosphere. Sam, about back then, I'm sorry." Unable to bear the silence, I ended up apologizing for what had happened. "I'm sorry for the trouble I caused you with my selfish proposal back then, and for making things difficult at work." With my head bowed deeply, I couldn't see his expression, but I could feel his gaze on my back. "Raise your head, Alex. I'm the one who should be apologizing." Surprised by his response, I looked up as he asked. According to Sam, he had thought my proposal back then was a good one, just like Mr. Nelson had. However, implementing it in the factory was challenging, with concerns about costs and uncertain outcomes. It was around then that he happened to consult with Mr. Nelson, who ended up recruiting me to his company as a result. "You had already made several excellent suggestions before that incident. I thought it was a waste for you to remain just an employee at the factory. I wanted to tell you at the time, but it didn't feel like the right moment." "So, you weren't angry then?" "No. I just couldn't find the right words." I sank to the ground, overwhelmed. I could still vividly remember that scene from 2 years ago. Sam standing there, looking away in silence. At the time, I thought he was furious. Learning the truth after 2 years, I couldn't stop the tears of relief from flowing. Thank goodness, thank goodness. Though, to be fair, I was still pretty frustrated. He said with a laugh. "But I'm glad we finally cleared up the misunderstanding. Sorry for letting you think otherwise all this time. No, if I'd known, I should have reached out to you sooner. I feel like a weight's been lifted. Well, now you'll have to shoulder something even bigger from here on out. I'm counting on you, Alex." With that, Sam turned and headed back to the conference room. The project moved forward smoothly, and the newly developed suspension was successfully completed and set to be installed in the next car model. News of the project's success reached the sales department as well, and of course, Mia had heard about it. The night the project wrapped up, I arrived home to find her waiting for me at the entrance. "Welcome home. I've been waiting for you." She gave me a light hug and, taking my bags, pulled me by the hand to the living room. Once there, I was greeted by the aroma of delicious food, with the table covered in dishes she had lovingly prepared. She prepared a feast to celebrate my hard work, waiting for me to come home so we could celebrate together. "Did you make all this, Mia?" "Of course. Who else would cook in this house?" Every dishes were my favorites. She'd often have dinner waiting for me, but this night, after completing a major project, seeing her efforts felt even more special. Overwhelmed with happiness, I wrapped her in a tight hug. "Hey, you're squeezing me. Let's get married." "What?" Overcome with emotion, the words just slipped out. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. "I've been carrying this around, waiting for the right moment to give it to you." I opened the box and showed her the ring inside. "Is this?" "Yes, an engagement ring." "It might seem sudden, but Mia, there's no one else for me but you." She looked back and forth between the ring and me, her eyes shining with joy and happiness. "Mia, will you marry me?" In response, she threw her arms around me tightly. "You're the only one for me too, Alex. I'm so happy. Let's keep making each other happy." "Hey, that's my job, to make you happy." In the months leading up to the wedding, we went around sharing the news. First, we started by reporting to each other's departments. This was done individually, rather than the two of us presenting together. My department mostly congratulated me, though a few people struggled to hide looks of envy. For Mia, who had a fan club, the reactions were mixed. Some celebrated her joyfully, while others shed tears of bittersweet happiness. We also went to see Sam, our mutual friend. Though surprised, he smiled and congratulated us warmly, saying, "You've both grown up so much." "Congratulations." Naturally, we also visited Mr. Nelson. At first, I was a bit tense, worried he might disapprove, but instead, he bowed deeply and thanked me. "I'm so glad I scouted you back then." Stunned, we listened as he continued, this time addressing Mia. He apologized to her for the loneliness she'd felt as a child, and for the difficulties she faced as the company president's daughter. She told me she'd never seen her father apologize before. Seeing this rare side of him and hearing his true feelings, she cried as she hugged her father tightly, like a child finding comfort. Then, I brought Mia to visit my family home. I felt a bit hesitant about showing her my cramped, messy home, but she insisted, wanting to see it before our marriage. When my family heard I was coming home, not only my parents but also my siblings had gathered to meet Mia and me. It was as lively as always, and though I worried about the chaos, she seemed to find it all charming, laughing happily throughout the visit. She told me later that the warm, crowded dinner around that small, noisy table was a memory she would cherish forever. What? Come on. Even if you get into a top university, people still laugh if you spent an extra year retaking the entrance exams to get in. No matter how successful she is as a lawyer, if my son is married to someone with a middle school graduate brother, the whole family will be a laughingstock. Just the thought of it gives me chills. I assumed you came from a wealthy family, and that after your parents passed, both siblings had made it through college. Given how impressive Jessica's background was, it was my mistake not to look into her brother. It's honestly embarrassing that he's a middle school graduate. I couldn't believe these were the words of the people who would soon be my dear sister's in-laws. I never imagined that anyone could say such things. Even later, during the wedding reception, I endured various insults and harassment from this family's relatives. The shock of seeing the nameplate on the table is something I can hardly put into words. Written in red marker, the words "middle school graduate loser" were scrawled messily across it. My assistant, Rachel, saw it too and was stunned. She muttered coldly, "If these are the people running that clinic, maybe it wouldn't be such a loss if it went under." At first, the groom's family laughed, but as they learned who I was and my current standing, I could see their faces turn visibly pale. My name is Kevin Turner, and I'm 37 years old. I work for a medical equipment company run by a friend of my father's. I have a sister named Jessica. Right now, I'm on my way to attend her wedding reception. Jessica, now 27, is marrying a man named Adam. He graduated from medical school and now works as a surgeon at a university hospital. Jessica, as a corporate lawyer for the hospital, began dating Adam after she successfully resolved a case where he had been accused of medical malpractice. The relationship quickly progressed, and they decided to get married. I'll visit Mom and Dad's graves soon to share the news with them. Yes, that's a good idea. I think it's the right thing to do. As I exchanged these words with Jessica, memories of everything since our parents passed away flooded my mind. It was about 20 years ago. Our parents lost their lives in a house fire. At the time, I was a high school sophomore, and Jessica was still in elementary school. The sudden loss of our parents turned our lives upside down. Our home burned down in the fire, and we lost our place to live. For a time, we stayed with my father's friend, Sean, but we decided to move into an apartment before I graduated from high school. Sean had said we could stay until I graduated, but I didn't want to rely on him any longer, so I insisted. Sean tried hard to persuade me to at least finish high school, but I had made up my mind after a lot of thought. Our parents had left us some savings, and we received insurance money. That allowed us to cover living expenses for a while, and I started working thanks to a job introduced to me by a man named Nathan. To this day, I'm deeply grateful to Nathan. Living each day with the weight of losing our parents while always worrying about money. But I told Jessica that she shouldn't worry about money and that she should just live as she had before, always trying to keep things bright. When she reached middle school, she found out that I had dropped out of high school to work. Is it really okay for me to go to high school? I mean, you're already working. Shouldn't I start working too after middle school? She started saying things like that. What are you talking about? Why do you think I'm working? I have a responsibility to help you grow up. I'm your big brother. Of course. It's my job to look after you. Yeah, but aren't you the only one sacrificing? I wonder if it's okay like this. Don't think of it as a sacrifice. It's fine. I just want you to go to high school and graduate without worrying. Besides, I wasn't that good at school anyway, and Nathan got me a job that I really enjoy. What? Really? So I can actually go to high school? Of course. You're incredibly smart. Study as much as you can and make sure you stay the little sister I'm proud of. Okay, I understand. And I'm proud of you too, big brother. After that, Jessica put her whole heart into studying and went on to high school. Maybe because she felt grateful to me, she was always deeply committed to her studies, consistently ranking at the top of her class. Even so, she seemed intent on getting a job after graduation, probably out of consideration for me. I'm going to get a job after I graduate from high school. During the three-way meeting with her teacher to discuss her future plans, Jessica was firm on this. Mr. Thompson, her teacher, looked quite surprised. I understand your financial situation, but with grades like Jessica's, she could easily get into a university that offers tuition waivers and scholarships, he encouraged her. I agreed with Mr. Thompson. Don't worry about tuition. Why are you so insistent? Mr. Thompson is even offering support, isn't he? Well, it's hard to know you're making sacrifices for me. Don't you have things you want to do? You're putting everything aside just to prioritize me. I can't be the only one who gets to finish high school and then go to college. And even with scholarships, they wouldn't cover everything. I'll cover whatever is missing. My performance at work is being recognized, and my salary is expected to go up soon. So covering your tuition won't be an issue. Look, don't think twice about it. If your grades were only good enough to get into a second-tier college, like mine were even after working hard, I wouldn't be saying all this. But with your current grades, you can get into a great university. That'll open up so many more opportunities for you. If it makes you feel better, we can treat whatever I cover as a loan. When you get a good job after graduating, then you can pay me back. Do you know how many years it would take me to get through college? You'd be living on a tight budget all that time. Are you really okay with that? Come on. We've supported each other since we lost mom and dad. There's no reason for you to hold back. If you're willing to go that far, then I'll go to college. Thank you. Really, thank you, big brother. Though it took some persuasion, Jessica finally agreed to pursue further education. Seeing our conversation, Mr. Thompson discreetly dabbed his eyes with a handkerchief. Jessica declared she would aim for the law school at a prestigious university. It was one of the toughest programs in Japan to get into. But Jessica faced the pressure head-on and passed the entrance exams on her first try. She graduated with honors, never needing to repeat a course. While in university, she passed the preliminary legal exam and later the bar exam as well. She was so exceptional that I sometimes wondered if we were even related. Then she joined her current law firm's summer clerkship, and after the exams, they offered her a position without hesitation. Now, Jessica is a highly successful attorney. At the time, I didn't understand why she wanted to become a lawyer. It turned out that seeing me struggle with legal paperwork after our parents passed away and we lost our home left her feeling helpless. She wanted to use her knowledge to help others in need, just like we had been. When I first learned of Jessica's motivation, I was truly moved by her thoughtfulness. If she hadn't gone to college, she wouldn't have become the lawyer she is today. I'm incredibly grateful to Mr. Thompson for encouraging her to continue her education, and I'm glad I convinced her. Adam, Jessica's fiancé, also knew about our history well. It seems he was drawn to Jessica not only for her skills as a lawyer but also for her sincerity, which led him to ask her out. I've heard a lot about you from Jessica. How you stepped in to protect her after your parents passed away. Oh, please. Protect is a bit much. We've simply helped each other along. I replied modestly, though I felt incredibly proud of the woman Jessica had become. I deeply wished for Jessica's happiness with this marriage. I planned to celebrate it wholeheartedly. But reality can be harsh, and one concern weighed on me. I had the opportunity to meet Adam, along with his parents, as a formal introduction and face-to-face meeting. However, during that encounter, something happened that made me feel uneasy. The meeting took place at the restaurant of the hotel where the two of them planned to hold their wedding reception. Adam's father is also a doctor and runs his own clinic. His name is Keith Knox, and he appears to be in his early 60s. With his intelligent, somewhat intense demeanor, he looked every bit the part of a physician. I informed Mr. and Mrs. Knox that I was there on behalf of our late parents. I've heard about your parents from Adam. It must have been a challenging time for both of you. Yes, we did go through difficult times, but looking back now, it wasn't all bad. Oh my, such a mature perspective for someone so young. I'd expect nothing less from the brother of the accomplished Jessica. No. Jessica's always had it together. Compared to me, she's done so much better. She makes me look inadequate in comparison. I wasn't just being modest, I genuinely meant it. Jessica truly is the kind of sister where finding a flaw is nearly impossible. Even so, raising Jessica in place of your parents and supporting her through a top university, your own background must be quite impressive. Yes, surely that's the case. So, what do you do for a living now? I'm currently working at the company of a friend of my late father's. The moment I answered, the smiles on their faces vanished. And what kind of work do you do there? I mainly handle sales and distribution for medical equipment. Sales and distribution at a medical equipment company? If you don't mind me asking, which university did you attend? I didn't go to university. I joined my current company after dropping out of high school. What? Wait, just a moment. When they said that, the two of them briefly glanced at Adam and Jessica, as if to observe their reactions. It was just the moment when Adam and Jessica were prompted by the venue staff to preview their wedding outfits. So they were about to head over there. Once the two had left, their expressions turned harsh, and they leaned toward me, closing the distance. Tell me, are you saying you didn't even graduate from high school? Yes, that's right. So, you only have a middle school education? Yes. This is unbelievable. Had we known, we wouldn't have approved of this marriage. Indeed, even now, we should consider halting things and discuss this again as a family. Now, hold on. The wedding date has already been announced. Calling it off now would be difficult. Besides, Jessica remains an ideal bride. Yes, she's not the problem here. Excuse me, but what exactly are you trying to say? Don't act like you don't know. You're a huge problem. Look, we run a clinic, and our entire family is well established. Many run businesses or hold senior positions in large corporations. Every single one of them attended a reputable university. It's a basic expectation. Ha! I see. I see, you say? That response is just so lacking. Don't you understand what we're getting at? I knew they weren't happy with my educational background. But their abrupt change in attitude left me too stunned to respond properly. In our family, it's considered shameful if someone even has to repeat a year to get into a good university. You probably don't understand. But having a questionable academic record is already a disgrace. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. Let me be clear, even someone who has to retake exams to get into a top school would be laughed at. If people knew our son married a woman with a middle school graduate brother. Just the thought of the ridicule makes me shudder. I assumed you came from a wealthy family and that both siblings would have attended university even after losing your parents. I thought Jessica's impeccable background made it unnecessary to investigate you. I never expected, never even imagined you'd be a middle school graduate. It's truly embarrassing. The words were so humiliating, I was left speechless. Still, with things this far along. In that case, we'll inform the family that Jessica and you are only nominally related, a mere formality. And you must promise never to claim you raised her in place of your parents. Do you understand? What? Excuse me? Don't act so resistant. People like you, once part of the family, always find ways to beg for money or sneak into inheritance plans. I'm sure you'd do something like that. Exactly. Listen closely, this is a warning. You will not loiter around Jessica, nor will you bring up loans or investments to us. I expect you to promise this here and now. If you don't, we'll cut ties immediately, or better yet, have our lawyer ensure you can't get near us. This isn't a threat, do you understand? I couldn't believe these words were coming from Jessica's future in-laws. I'd never experienced such an insulting encounter. I barely managed to hold back my anger and remain there quietly. If I let Jessica know the humiliation I just endured, it might disrupt her relationship with Adam. They're a perfect match. The last thing I wanted was for their relationship to fall apart. There's no need to worry. I won't ask you or Jessica for any money in any form, now or ever. Poof. We'll remember you said that. Any suspicious behavior, and we won't hesitate to take action. But there's one thing I must make clear. Jessica and I have supported each other all these years. No matter your request, I won't cut ties with her. I'm not going to stop seeing her, and I won't compromise on that. What an outrage! This is nothing short of harassment. You should contact a lawyer right away. Just as Mrs. Knox was about to berate me further, Adam and Jessica returned after checking their wedding attire. The Knoxes instantly put on cheerful expressions as if nothing had happened. From that point on, both the Knoxes and I maintained our composure in front of the couple, somehow getting through the interaction. Until the day of the wedding reception, I naturally didn't have any more encounters with the Knoxes. I hadn't shared a word with Jessica about what had transpired that day. However, I had told the woman who was accompanying me to the reception today about it. Her name is Rachel. She's an important partner to me, both personally and professionally. We plan to marry soon, and she's close to Jessica as well. Jessica had also invited her, so she was attending the reception with me. At first, I hadn't intended to tell anyone about the humiliation I experienced with the Knoxes. But Rachel quickly sensed something weighing on me. Deep down, I think I wanted someone to listen, so I ended up confiding in her. "So, today's the day you're going to put those horribly rude in-laws in their place, right?" "What? No way. If I did that, it would ruin the ceremony. Besides, I'm not interested in taking any action that would disrupt the day, regardless of what's happened." "Oh, what a shame. I thought you brought me along as backup for just that reason." "Come on, this isn't some showdown." "Ah, boring." "Well, they didn't insult me directly, but it still ticks me off. Still, it's Jessica's big day, so I won't do anything too wild. Maybe I was too hasty in sharing this with you." We looked at each other and laughed. Rachel's fiery spirit sometimes threw me off, but more often than not, she had my back. Having her by my side gave me a sense of security in many ways. When we arrived at the venue, we began looking for the seats reserved for the bride's family. Since Adam is a doctor, and Jessica a lawyer, the wedding was extravagant, with many guests in attendance. Even from across the room, I quickly spotted the Knoxes seated at the far end of the groom's family section. I made sure to avoid direct eye contact with them to prevent any unnecessary confrontation. There they are, at the far end. They're looking over here with the most spiteful smiles. Rachel informed me, keeping an eye on the Knoxes for me. Figures. Well, if all I have to endure are a few laughs from them, that's fine. The most important thing today is celebrating Jessica and Adam. I don't want to waste a thought on anything trivial. With that, we found Rachel's seat first, then I looked at the nameplate on the seat beside hers, or I assumed mine would be. What? My mind went blank. Where my name should have been written, there was no sign of it. Instead, scrawled messily in red marker, were the words "middle school graduate loser." No one but the Knoxes could have pulled off a childish prank like this. I instinctively shot a glare toward the groom's family section. The Knoxes, along with a few nearby family members, were watching me and bursting into laughter. Clearly, my academic background had become a source of amusement among the relatives. The Knoxes must have set this up in advance, informing everyone and watching to see my reaction as I discovered the nameplate. Their sense of humor was truly revolting. Seeing me freeze momentarily upon reading those words only seemed to make them laugh harder. Mrs. Knox was even clapping her hands in delight, laughing openly. What awful people. But with the venue bustling with lively conversations and the occasional cheer, no one else seemed to notice the scene at their table. I decided to leave without taking my seat. If I sat there quietly, they'd continue laughing at me endlessly. And who knows, this might just be the start, with more insults lined up. As much as I regretted it, I couldn't endure any more humiliation. Wait. However, Rachel quickly came after me, grabbing my arm to stop me. You've been holding back all this time just to celebrate Jessica and Adam today, right? Don't forget how Jessica would feel if she noticed you weren't there. Yeah, you're right. If I was going to get angry, I should have done it the first time they insulted me. I promised myself I'd hold it in for Jessica and Adam, but I was about to totally lose it. If you hadn't been here, I'd have stormed out by now. Thank you. Ignoring the sneers and finger pointing from the Knoxes, I focused back on the celebration. Before long, the bride and groom, our main stars, entered the room to enthusiastic applause. The guest speeches began soon after. Starting with Dr. Smith, the director of Adam's hospital, and then Ms. Taylor, the head of Jessica's law firm. We heard from friends and the groom's family members as well. But then, as all the speeches finished, I realized my turn had never come. Jessica had asked me to give a speech, and I'd prepared it with my whole heart. Even though the groom's family speeches had concluded, none of the staff had come to let me know it was my turn. When I checked with one of the nearby staff, they gave me a surprising response. After confirming, it appears that, just before the ceremony began, one of the groom's family members requested that the bride's family representative speech be cancelled, stating it wasn't prepared. So, it was removed from the schedule. I turned my gaze back to the Knoxes. Sure enough, they were whispering to each other, laughing quietly while looking my way. I'd reached my limit. I moved along the wall, trying not to interrupt anything, making my way over to where the Knoxes were. Rachel followed me silently. The Knoxes looked at me with eyes full of disdain. "What on earth are you trying to pull? Huh? What are you talking about? I think the question is better asked of you. Do you really not remember what I told you the other day? What? Just what are you talking about? Oh, really, have you forgotten already? Or do you just lack the understanding? If so, that's truly unfortunate." They waved their hands as if brushing me off. "What do you think you're doing, canceling my speech like that? Don't be ridiculous. The fact that you'd even consider speaking is absurd. Once we realized you intended to go through with it, we had no choice but to take proper measures. Having an uneducated man speak at my son's wedding would be a lifelong embarrassment. We're simply doing what any responsible parents would do." Around us, I noticed some of the groom's family stifling laughs. "And what right do you have to insult me? Did you really think you could be treated as an equal? Know your place, you worthless fool. Don't talk to me again. I'll be handling this legally. If you approach us or our family again, we'll make sure you pay for it. Keep that in mind." As I trembled with anger, barely holding back a shout, Rachel, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. "Mr. Turner, I never imagined they'd be so rude. I'm truly shocked. I don't think you need to hold back anymore about the clinic's future business. And who are you to interfere in family matters?" "Oh, I was merely giving Mr. Turner my business opinion." "Excuse me? Mr. Turner? Who do you think you're talking about? I wasn't speaking to you. This is between Mr. Kevin Turner and myself. Please, don't trouble yourself with our conversation." "What? Mr. Kevin Turner?" "Yes, the man standing before you is the president, Mr. Kevin Turner." "Oh. So he's some small-town company president now? And what does this grand president plan to do?" Rachel pulled up the company president's greeting page on her phone and handed it to Keith. At first, Keith looked at it reluctantly, with a hint of skepticism in his eyes, but then his expression suddenly tightened. "Honey, what's wrong? Isn't this the medical equipment company our clinic works with?" "No way, I'm not falling for such a lousy joke." "That's fine. After all, this is just my phone. Why don't you check on your own device?" Flustered, he pulled out his own phone and quickly found my company's page. As he reached the president's introduction with my picture, his face turned pale. "No, this has to be some kind of trick." With that, Keith stood up, turned his back to us for a moment, and seemed to start talking to someone on his phone. He was likely calling someone at his clinic to confirm if what we said was true. Last month, I had taken on the role of president of this company. At the request of a friend of my father's, I had only recently stepped into this position. The daughter of my father's friend is Rachel. This friend, to whom I owe a great debt, had been in poor health for a while and had decided to pass the company to his daughter. He also expressed his wish for me and Rachel to marry. It's been nearly 20 years since I, a middle school graduate, started working at this company. And now I know more about the inner workings here than anyone else. He said he couldn't imagine entrusting his daughter to anyone else but me. I proposed to Rachel, and we decided to marry, determined to build up the company together. Now, Rachel and I are essential partners both in life and business. While her official title is secretary, she is, in effect, my co-manager. Her influence in the company is as strong as mine as president. With Rachel speaking so decisively, I knew our company could end its contract with the clinic at any time. The immediate cessation of business with the clinic won't impact our company. Very well. Let's proceed with that right away. Wait. You don't need to decide something so crucial here on the spot, do you? Let's take a moment to talk things over calmly. Oh, that's odd. Weren't you the one who said any further discussions would have to go through lawyers? And that I'd be liable if I spoke too hastily? I'd be too terrified to answer lightly. Well, how impudent. Mr. Turner has said he doesn't want to supply products to a clinic run by people like you. Feel free to reject our business if you prefer. Well, I have never heard such rude words from a woman. She's like a monster. A monster? I think you're the far scarier ones here. My goodness. Say something to them, will you? Enough. You stay out of this. You're only complicating things. Keith held his head in his hands, lost deep in thought. He kept shifting his gaze back and forth between me and his family members. Genuinely torn between preserving his clinic's success and upholding his family's honor. I couldn't understand the concept of preserving family pride to such an extent. This just won't do. The fact you're a middle school graduate is unacceptable. Our family prides itself on being highly educated. But, could we renegotiate the terms to continue the deal? We'd even pay extra for the equipment if we could keep doing business. If we lose this contract, it would be a real issue for us. After all, finding a new business partner isn't easy for either of us, right? Don't you agree? I heard Rachel sigh deeply. This conversation is over. After delivering our current products, we'll be terminating our business relationship with your clinic. You're free to find other suppliers for your medical equipment needs. What? I'm offering this after all, but that's your response? And from someone who didn't even finish high school. There was no hope here. Exasperated, I turned away without a word. In that instant, he snapped. You bastard, he yelled, lunging at me from behind. Caught off guard, I lost my balance and leaned back. It was at that moment. What are you doing? Ah! I looked back to see that Rachel had deftly blocked his hand, knocked him off balance with a sweep of her leg, and sent him sprawling to the floor. The room fell silent as people turned to see what had happened, but Rachel calmly explained to the staff that he'd stumbled in his drunken state. Looking over to the relatives' table, I saw the groom's family, wide-eyed and silent, watching us. Without a word, I turned and returned to my seat. Rachel sat next to me, looking as if nothing had happened. The ceremony continued smoothly from there. The staff graciously arranged a last-minute slot for me to give my speech near the end of the event, and the room filled with applause. Seeing the bride and groom's happy faces filled me with emotion. That was such a heartfelt and beautiful speech. It truly showed how much you care for Jessica. Thank you so much for today. I was genuinely grateful to have shared this day with Rachel. A few days after the wedding, our company officially terminated its contract with his clinic. While the clinic may now struggle with equipment shortages that affect patient care, it's no longer my concern. When Adam learned the truth, he came to me in tears, apologizing for his parents' rudeness. I assured him I had no intention of making a big deal of the matter, and that things between us wouldn't change. Relieved, he went home. Later, however, I heard from my sister that he'd severed ties with his family. With Jessica's support, he'd taken legal steps to ensure that any contact from his family would incur penalties. He'd learned from his relatives' own overuse of legal threats and swiftly turned the tables on them. To be honest, I was truly relieved that Jessica and her husband had cut ties with those relatives. Next up is you two. Yes, you and Rachel deserve happiness too, big brother. Right. I can't wait to see Rachel as a bride, she's going to look stunning. Lately, I've been getting more and more gentle nudges from my sister and her husband, urging me to marry Rachel. Rachel and I exchanged a smile, saying, one of these days. Grateful for this happiness, I threw myself into my work with renewed dedication today.